Hi, hi. Good evening, good evening, good evening. God damn. Ito na yata. Talaga? Ito na ba talaga? Baka mahabaan na naman ako. May Act 5 pa pala. May Act 6. Kala ko yun eh. Baka meron pa pala. Mali ako. Ewan ko. Ewan ko. Sana naman konting haba. Mga 1 hour naman tong mga natitirang ano. Masyado kasing pinahaba yung isa. Sorry. Sorry na, sorry. Mango, mango. Ito na, simulan na natin. Sana tayo bumalik na uli si Lily sama sa Scotland. Oh! And naiwan tayo. Naiwan si Hisaw pala. Oh my god. Inayos ko lang yung volume sa headphones ko masyado pong maingay. The stop of my mobile phone's closing contracts with the ambient chatter and noise audible even the hallway outside the library. It's the first day of the summer holidays, a time that had perpetually seemed so far away, and yet it's now not only here but also made painfully obvious by the students or lack thereof left in the school. Most have returned home to spend the holidays with relatives by now. The few that are left are mostly chatting between themselves, usually about what they intend to do in the coming weeks. It makes me feel like the odd one out for taking advantage of the school library being open for the first several days of the holidays. Nga pala yung mga plans natin na sira, because Scotland, pumunta si Lily sa Scotland, bagano para naman din tayo sana. Lily sama. Pero bakit nasa school pa rin, 'di ba? Sabi kung hindi pupunta siya sa parents niya. Am I right? Am I right? Ostensibly, it's for students to drop off any books they borrowed and have yet to return. Oh, makes sense. And for those who have their parents pick them up. Oh, okay, makes sense. To help pass the time until they get whisked away. Thanks to the recent lengthy phone call from my parents, which had so rudely woken me from my sleeping on the beanbag at the back of the library, I'm now in the latter category. Sliding my phone back into my pocket, this time remembering to set it to silent, I go back into the quiet and wholly placid room pala. Sorry. It's a nostalgic sight, just as when Lily first led me to the library. The orange tint of sunset bats the room in its light while Hanako sits on a beanbag silently reading and Yuko fusses just barely visible behind the counter. Hanako especially has been noticeably more quiet than usual since yesterday's happenings, but I can't really blame her. It wasn't just me that depended on that person after all. I quietly walked back to the beanbag near where I'd sat before, being doubly careful not to make any unnecessary noise. The soft puff it gives as the bug takes my way makes Hanako eyes flick towards me, but only for a second. I get the feeling that Hanako's been quiet only partly out of sadness following Lily's departure. Rather, she seems more thoughtful and measured than I'd expected. Perhaps due to her desire of working out how to deal with Lily's leaving rather than just being depressed over it. It makes me a little proud of her. How about you? Ano ka naman? Anong depressed ka ba or you working it out, Hisaw? Hey, Hanako. Yeah. Still going ahead with your idea of traveling? She gives a determined nod. I'll be starting in a day or two. Now Miss decided to come with me too. Wow, quick start. Where you headed? Where are you two headed to first? I think we're going to start by going north, then loop down and go southward. So, Hokkaido's going to be first? She gives another nod, more tentative than the last. The significance of that place is not lost on either of us. Do you know where you're going to handle the traveling expenses and accommodations? Ano ka ba, tatay? Yeah, I've worked everything out. I think it should be okay. Naomi says she has her side worked out too. Mama pala. Pag ganito pala, mama. You know that if you need anything, you can just call, right? I gave you my number before. Any time of the day is fine. She gives a smile, which in itself feels like a small personal victory. I know. Th- Thanks, Hisaw. Maybe Lily was right. Although I may offer Hanako any help I can possibly give, I feel as if I don't I know she doesn't need it. She really has grown. Proud, proud mother. I'm proud mother. Hanako's plan for her holidays are in sharp contrast to my simple following of my parents' suggestion to stay with them. Holidays had always made me feel less excited than most, though. So maybe this is just a return to the status quo. Before my heart attack, I'd always lived so aimlessly that holidays weren't all that much different from everyday life anyway. After school, I would wander around a bit in the city, often hanging out with some friends, before making my way home to eat dinner with usually one of my parents but rarely both. Their work schedules didn't leave much time for them to be home, and going there straight from the school would just have meant I'd end up feeling bored. I was an urbanite through and through. Urbanite? Since coming to Yamako though, it feels like I've fundamentally changed as a person. The phone call with my parents erased any traces of doubt I might have held on that in any case. While before I had exercised a fairly normal level of independence for a teenager, that being not a whole lot, my parents were more than pleased to hear of my newfound ability in taking care of myself. Laundry, cooking for myself, cleaning, all in addition to other general chores that come from living without my parents around. Just little menial things I've had to pick up, but with relative ease. When I think about it, I'd always depend on them, even if they hadn't been at home all the time. To say I'd never depend on anyone after moving to the Yamako dormitories would be far from the truth, though. Um, excuse me. The two of us look up at the awkwardly fidgeting figure in front of us. Some things never change. It's getting close to closing time, so oh right, I'd forgotten that library closes earlier during the holidays. Hanako and I both get up and dust ourselves off, placing book our books back on the shelf behind us. The fact that our tastes in reading material have a fair amount of overlap is useful at times. With a bow to Yuko to apologize for taking so much time, Hanako takes her leave of us. See you tomorrow, Hisao. Bye. And with that, she walks out the large wooden aging doors that herald the entrance to the library. She's a quiet person, isn't she? I suppose I should be surprised at a staff member sharing personal opinions like this. But after knowing Yuko for a while, it's largely expected. Our relationship is more personal, rather than one with her acting as an authority figure. Yeah, I think that's just how she... Bakit ba ako? Alala. I think that's just how she is. She's got a lot more confidence in herself these days though. I don't know her as well as you do, but I think I agree. It's nice to see her talking to people here. She never used to do that before. Hey Yuko, you know about Lily's leaving, right? She told me herself a few days ago. It must be hard leaving everyone behind like she is. She quickly looks back to me after she says this, probably remembering that I went to her for advice on the relationship between Lily and me before. Are you going to be okay? That's a difficult question. It's something I'd rather not to think about for now. Though, given more pressing issues, something seems kind of off about this whole deal, don't you think? Yuko appears to think for a while, absent-mindedly scrunching her face up in a variety of creative ways as she does so. I don't think I really know her well enough to make that kind of judgment. I'm sorry, I can't be more of help. Nah, that's fine. I'm just sort of thinking aloud. Out loud. Out loud or aloud? Parang pares lang naman. I give a deep sigh and scratch my head in frustration. There's just so much stuff happening at once that I have no control over. It feels like I'm being swamped. I think everyone goes through times like that. What's important is to concentrate on what you can do rather than what you can't do. At least that's how I see it. Sana all. Merong confidence na kayang gawin yung magagawa na alam nilang baka pwede talagang gawin kasi sa akin how dito effort yung parang takot ako masayang yung effort ko. Basta trauma. If I didn't think like that, I don't think I'd be able to manage my life as it is. She says it with a smile and a light tone, but her words are far from any kind of joke. Being pulled between two jobs as she is just to hopefully make enough money not only to live, but also for university must be exhausting. Perhaps that's why coming from her this feels like it has more meaning than if it had come from most others. I guess you've got a point there. Thank you for your advice once again, Yuko. She bows deeply and smiles again before making her way back to the counter where she spent so much of her time. The tiny wings of the cardboard crane in my fingers are only just visible in the dim lights of my room. Just a little of the moonlight being able to peek through the curtains and around the edges. Yung origami na binigay sa akin ni Lily sa mga... I lie still in my dark bed for a long time, idly looking up at the little origami bird. It feels like a lot happened since Lily folded this, but at the same time, it feels like very little has changed. Compared to everyone else, I'm back to square one. I might have a newfound idea of where I want to go in life, but that's hardly something that affects me now. Hanako changed. I know that much. If anything, she just makes me feel like I've got no excuse to be like this, considering her previous situation. Lily, though, I turned the bird in my fingers another way, looking at it from yet another angle. When I first met her, she seemed aloof, and perhaps somewhat Distance. Distant. Her actions were always careful, measured, and precise, and her carefully maintained composure always gave the appearance of unerring confidence and serenity. In time, she became less formal, just a bit, but enough. It felt good to see her lowering her inhibitions around me, and opening up, even just a little, of her own accord. It felt as if I was seeing her real self slowly become more vibrant and visible. Now, though, I'm beginning to have doubts. Perhaps they're to be expected after what is, effectively, the two of us breaking up. They don't feel new or strange though, but rather like an old book being found and dusted off. I soon realized after meeting Lily that she saw me as she did Hanako, as someone who needed help and care. At first, I simply thought that we'd be fine as friends, helping each other through our limited time together in school. But then I began to treasure our moments together more and more. From our quiet walks to our talking over lunch, the good sides of her personality became even more obvious and even more likable. The absence caused by Lily's trip to Scotland to visit her long distance family and sick aunt only made me realize how much I liked just being around her, and I had thought that she felt a similar way. For her though, maybe that wasn't everything to our relationship. Even after she returned to Japan, that just mean that just meant she lost her family once again after meeting them for such a brief time. She lived so much of her life without her family around, not to mention with Akira working long hours, that she had little choice but to be like that. I had thought her sense of independence to be a good and admirable trait. It was in stark difference to my reliance on my parents before my heart attack, as reluctant as I may have been to admit it. However, it also meant that she never let people get too close to her. She lost her family likely due to her blindness, went to a different school from anybody she knew because of it, and worked all the harder to make sure she didn't end up burdened on her sister and those around her. And now, Akira's going to Inverness, just like the family she thought she'd lost. She never told me of her plans, as conflicted as she was about them. Lily didn't want to be a burden on anyone, including me. I'm an idiot. I never questioned it. I never tried to be there or ask when she needed me to. I just set my life up and expected it to stay that way forever. With the two of us having a nice long relationship where we pushed forward towards our future together. A small bit of frustration and anger at myself wells up in my chest. I just let everything happen, never even trying to help Lily. Just her being there was enough. I thought I could keep going on if that were true. But that could never have been enough. It was a childlike dependence on somebody without any attempt to understand or help their situation. Thanks to that, I lost Lily. I lost the one person I loved most because I wasn't there for her when she needed me. With an increasingly angry feeling washing over me, I turned over and set the crane back on the desk next to my clock, the place where it has lived since that day when she folded it for me. Wow, tinetreasure. Since that day when she herself said that my burdens needn't be my own. The obnoxious bright red numerals of my alarm clock shine through the darkness of the room onto my tired eyes. 10 o'clock, evening. Curfew will be soon. I wonder. Akira mentioned they'd be leaving this evening. I've no idea exactly when their flight is, but that means there's a chance, however small, that they might not have already left. Adrenaline starts to move through my body as I sit up on my bed, my eyes suddenly wide with possibility. There's no guarantee they haven't left. Indeed, it's likely that they already have, but there's also a chance they haven't, however small it may be. Oh shit! Ano siya, tatakbuhan niya. Oh my God! Tatakbo si Hiso papunta kay ano, kay Lily Sama. Oh my God. Just this once, just as I should have before. I stand up and rush over to my cabinet, throwing out some clothes as fast as I can and sliding them in quick succession. Each second that goes by is a second that I can regain, a second that may mean the difference between catching them and losing them for yes, yes, yes. Even if I fail, I have to try. I can't let her leave everything behind without even trying to stop her, without just this once being there for her. Yes, 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 yes. With the last of my clothes slipped on, I hastily grabbed the phone of the desk. Luckily, the number of a local taxi company is still in my call history. A gruff and enthusiastic voice announced the name of the company while I paced around the room. It takes some effort to slow down my bus and keep it clear over the phone. The chilly night air sweeps against me as I open the dormitory door, but nevertheless, I keep up my brisk speed as I half jog, half run to the school gates. Oh my God, oh my God. Wait lang. Pero kapag tumakbo si Hisaw yung arit. Oh my God. Parang mas ano to. Sa iba kasi yung parang tumakbo lang. Syempre ganun. Pero ito, mas intense kasi may arrhythmia. Baka pwedeng anong oras man eh ma-consider tapos hindi niya maabutan. Oh my God! It may not be curfew just yet, but it's precariously close. If there was a guard around, they'd know that have question for me. But it looks like I've managed to come out just before they arrive, or they're around the corner. My space picks up as I make my way through the school gardens. They're nighttime all but lost when I begin to run to the school gate. The lamps of the courtyard, dim as they are, provide just enough illumination to light the way and prevent me from tripping over. The building themselves takes on a rustic, almost antique-looking edge when I glance at them. Looking back, it seems strange that they once appeared so dark and looming to me. Now they just look to be somewhat anachronistic school buildings, the same as any others bar their age. Bar their age. Leaving the gates behind me, I pull up to a stop just before the taxi, parked just as Akra's car had been. Its gaudy and brightly lit sign looks out of place in the quiet country backdrop. I impatiently squeeze my left through the door, giving the driver the address for where the two should hopefully be staying. By the time the taxi pulls up after its trips, it's maddeningly casual, it's well and truly deep into the night. The house is truly enormous, its sheer size much larger than I expected. And ominously still fearing the worst, I ask the driver to stay just in case of my efforts are for naught. A single press on the fancy intercom system outside the gate produces a short electronic melody in the otherwise silent road. It's not long before a somewhat deep gruff voice can be heard from it. This is the Hakamichi residence. Please state your name and why you're bothering us this late. I press on despite inwardly wising at the reasonable annoyance audible in his voice. It's Hisao Nakai. I was hoping to meet Lily or Akira if they're still here. Surprisingly, I managed to summon quite some energy to my voice, enough to make the other side of the intercom silent. Phew! Oh, phew! A few seconds pass but just before I press the button again. Siyempre wala dito tapos nakaalis na daw. Tapos oh my God dun sa may airport. Oh my God! Ang dami ko pa man ding ano. Ah, Umano sa kanyang white album. Before I press the button again and ask what's going on, a light turns on outside the front door. I strain my eyes to try and make out who is coming through, but as he comes past a large parked car with a fishing rod sticks out in the back, his identity becomes clear. His face is typically placid and emotionless as he saunters up to the gate. He's still childlike in his mannerism, despite his demeanor. With the press of a few buttons from behind the fence, the gate slowly opens. Si ano to? Dito yung Hideaki. Hisao, what are you doing here? I think this is the most emotion I've ever heard from his voice, not that it would be hard to reach that mark. Akara told me that she and Lily would be staying here before they left for their flight. I need to talk to Lily just one last time. Are they still here? The look on his face says everything. I felt I was too late. The one time when I actually needed to act quickly and actually, it's possible. Oh shit! Nice. Oh. Oh. Na-excite ako. Orgasm na. Sobrang excited ko. Nice. What is it? It's a bit taken aback by my fervor, but I can't help it at this point. They left not long ago, only a few minutes before you arrived. In fact, if you go straight to there, you might be able to. Hisaw. I dart back towards the waiting taxi, grabbing what little money is left in my pocket as I go. Thanks, Hideaki. With that, I take a seat and in short order bark out my destination. Whew. My chest beats wildly as I tear down the street, my body twisting this way and that to slip between the pedestrian walking back and forth beside me. with the road solidly blocked by taxis and other cars dropping off passengers and picking up others in the time they have to wait. We ended up having to stop almost a block away. But that's in the past now. What matters is reaching Lily. Oh shit! One foot hits the ground and the other quickly following without the slightest thought, as if my legs have taken a life on of their own and all my mind can do is concentrate on the view ahead of me. Just one glimpse of that long hair of hers, that long yellow hair that was the same color as the wheat that stretched as far as the eye could see. In the end, I depended on Lily just like Hanako did. Even after we started going out, it still doesn't feel like she really ever let herself depend on me. Except for one moment. That one moment where we held each other tightly on that bright yellow field. At that time, she must have feared losing me just as she did everyone else. That's why, just this once, that night our air wraps around me, draining every last remnant of warmth out of my body, to the extent that it feels more like midwinter than a summer night. Oh my god! Takbo! Takbo! Isaw! Takbo! My fingers, my hands, my feet, they all feel increasingly cold. The sound of the passing cars is reduced to no more than a background hum, while the sound of my shoes hitting the pavement echoes loudly every step, surging towards the person I have to catch. Forced by my chest tightening in response to the cold of the night, I rest an arm over it to try and settle it down. Oh my god, oh my god, ito yung arrhythmia. Sabi ko sa'yo. When the airport comes into view, do I realize this feeling as one I've felt before. Not now, of all time for this, please not now. I take a gulp and soldier on regardless, pushing my body as far as it will go. Sweat pours off me as I hurtle forward, my shoulder hitting someone's side, and my mind suddenly flooding with emotion and memories. I continue on without an avoid. I have to keep moving now. If I stop, I'm not sure I could begin again, and even if I could, it would all be for naught if I'm not in time. I hit another person, then another, offering little resistance to getting bounced about. My feet feel numb. My arms are losing all feeling. My chest forces me to hunch over, awkwardly tightening even more. Evermore. That afternoon, in the snow, that time when my life irreversibly changed, images of Iwanako and that damned letter flash over and over in my mind. The first love I'd lost thanks to my condition. I can't let that happen again. I don't care what happens to me anymore. I just need to see her one last time. Oh, shit! Let's go, Isao! Let's go! There. A silver of yellow and white comes into a silver of yellow and white comes into view some distance down the road. Her figure silhouetted by the lights emanating from the airport entrance. Lily, 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 stop, please, Lily. Come on, Lily. I know your hearing's far beyond normal. Ka! My view suddenly spins out of control and ends up on the ground. My body haphazardly sprawled after hitting someone and stumbling over. Before I can assess the damage, and unbelievable pain ignites in my body. All my thoughts are blank as I curl up and frantically clutch at my chest. Hey, are you okay? That was a really bad fall. This pain, I can't. Ah! Ah! Masyadong dramatic. Masyadong ibang ano pala yan. Any sharp knock could do me in. Any exertion. I thought I could overcome my limits this one. Something's wrong with him. What's the matter? The voice of those gathering around me are gradually replaced by a loud ringing in my ears. By now, I'm unable to move my head. My eyes turn upwards to see the mute moving of their lips. Oh shit! Oh! Saan narinig ako ni Lily? Oh my god. Even as I clutch my chest, I realize I can't feel my fingers anymore, nor my feet. It feels like my entire body is shutting down, starting from my extremities. With one last effort, I turned my head down the road towards the airport entrance that's casting its light over me. Lily is there, behind the crowd. Her head is tilted, but only just slightly. I can feel my vision dimming as I try to yell out, but nothing emerges from my mouth. Despite my best efforts, slowly but surely, my vision begins to block out the scene before me. So, this is how it ends. I failed. Oh my god! Sana naman hindi. Yung pagising mo tapos nandun na pala si Lily. Sana, oh my god! Sana hindi naman. Masyado namang tong, masyadong sad ending. Mali bang route ba na pwede? I failed. I was so close, so very close. But at the very last moment, my condition seized my chance at a new life and dragged me back. Now, I'm going to die, sprawled out just meters from an airport, with a crowd of bubbling people surrounding me and with Lily leaving for Scotland just a little distance ahead. Li... Li... That last word extends the last of my energy. The word falls into a deep, inescapable blackness as every muscle in my body shuts down. I'm sorry, Dilly. I was too late. Hot damn! Oh my god. This is such a motherfucker. Sad ending? Sad ending ba? Datatatat. Tatatatat. Datatatat. What's going on? As I slowly open my eyes, a bright white light assaults my retinas. For minutes, I just lay where I am, mindlessly staring. Namatay ba ako? I mindlessly namatay pala si Isaw. Namatay ba si Isaw? Mindlessly staring ahead while my scattered thoughts coalesces in my slowly waking mind. Slowly but surely, the white begins to come into focus as a bare expanse begins to be drawn across my field of vision. It's only when the light fixture comes into view that my mind clicks that this is the ceiling above me. Oh my god, nasa ospital na naman ako. Slowly levering myself up, I silently absorb all my senses, the details of the room I'm in. The smell and taste of strong bleach hung in the air, lending the impression of a place just slightly too clean to be natural. Inoffensive, pale peach-colored walls, all perfectly painted without a crack, stain, or imperfection. A single frame paintings hung on the wall, perfectly straightened like the walls. It's as boring and inoffensive as it can be. My attention is grabbed by the translucent curtain waving across my vision, my eyes following it to the open window it covers. When I move my right arm to try to lift myself up and look through it, I feel the catheter, 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 catheter dig in uncomfortably. It's only now, too, that I notice the cannula tubes winding around my cheeks and into my nose. After some fidgeting, I settle for just looking around the corner of the window. Beyond the thick leaves of several large trees, I can see the greenery below, backing out onto a field, a customary island of green on the outskirts of the city. Judging by the sun outside, it's noon, of which day, though, I'm not sure. So, I'm in a hospital once again. I let out a long, tired breath as I try to collect my scattered thoughts, my mind seeming cast in a dozen directions all at once with as many emotions running through me. After slowly lying back down, I decide to start at the beginning why I'm here. I cast my mind back, but I can't work out a smooth recollection of what happened. The event of last night, or whichever night it was, come back more as a series of snapshots than any cohesive memory. Lying on my bed, looking at the origami bird, talking to Hideaki outside the Hakamichi residence, running down the street, passing pedestrians and bumping into more and more of them, falling, looking up at the searingly bright airport entrance, seeing Lily's back as I lay on the ground. Dat. The silence of the private room suddenly feels overwhelming. Ah, mali bang route na to? Oh my god. So that's it. I had my chance to correct my mistake, and I blew it. Whether I was at fault for neglecting my medication and disregarding to pace myself, or my body was for giving out so soon, it doesn't matter now. All that matters is that once again I'm alone. The the pastel blue pillow yields with little resistance as I let myself back onto the bed is starchy case, along with the starchy sheets, providing little comfort. Compared to the darkness of last night's events, the bright light of the room around me is striking. All it does though is emphasize how otherworldly places like this are. Arrhythmia. A strange word, a foreign, alien one that you don't want to be in the same room with. A rare condition. It causes the heart to act erratically and occasionally beat way too fast. It can be fatal. Yeah. It was a miracle that you were able to go on so long without anything happening, they said. And then indeed, and then it did. My condition has taken away everything. My old school was of no importance anymore. My home was reduced to a faraway place. Both my friends and my first love simply stopped visiting after a wait lang, parang part umulit. I became cynical and embittered, distant and subdued in my defense. No person could avoid that after such a thing happening to them. But nonetheless, I left the hospital as a very definitely changed person. Things changed. I made new friends in Hanako, Shizune, and Misha. I found a new sense of home in my dormitory, a new interest in science and the world around me, and I found a direction to my life that I have never felt before. But I'd also discovered over some over but I'd also discovered over ah? But I'd also discovered other things. The sense of isolation in Yamako, and its surrounds was not entirely unwelcome. The quiet giving a peace of mind I might not have found elsewhere, but it gave the area a feeling of being pushed out of the way, of being kept out of sight. People in streets would sometimes glance awkwardly or quickly turning their heads as they realized they were staring. Even if my condition wasn't visible, my uniform was. Even if it weren't, I was still different. I took 17 pills a day, morning, midday, and night. Huh? 17 pills a day? Morning, midday, and night. Tigilan yun. 17 divided by 3. Mm, 6 point something. Kasi 6 plus 6 plus 6 ay 18. Pwede 5 point ano? Huh? 5. 5. Ewan ko. Or baka meron kasi yung 7, 6 ano, 6 sa ano, ay 5 sa ano, tapos 6 sa umaga, tapos 6. Oh. My scar, though hidden behind clothing, was still a permanent mark of my condition. And most of all, there was the very real possibility of death. A bad fall and absent-minded hit on the back. A simple sprint taken too far. Anything could have set my heart off, and several times I teetered on the edge of the abyss, even with all the care I took of myself. But that was fine. I could have lived with all that. Because there was one final thing I'd found, or rather found after entering Yamako, which was once again snatched away before my eyes. It's only now that I realize just how delicate my newfound sense of happiness was. Ah, so sad. Sad ending. Oh my god. Dapat, ano na ba? Dapat, saan ba to? Saan ba ako nagkamali? Dapat, ano, yung hindi ako nag-limit. Yung sinamahan ko si Emmy, yung dapat tumakbo pa ako ng mas maano. Ewan ko. Everything depended on her, the linchpin of my life since I first entered Yamako as a silent, confused, and aimless transfer student. Lily Sato was the one person I could depend upon above all others, and who reciprocated the love that I felt for her. But I failed her, and only realized it all too late. I thought that I could just set my life up and continue the way forever, but the real world doesn't work like that. I finally realized the meaning of those words, only to be struck down as I confronted my failure to do so in time. That. The surroundings I'm in now are all too familiar. It as if Yamako was but a dream, and I'm still recovering from my first major heart attack. But that's why I feel so tired. It feels as if I've lived the entire last few months of my life in the space of minutes. The weight of my eyelids close my eyes, my physical and mental exhaustion letting me offer no resist. Wag naman tong sad ending. Wag naman sana. Good, kahit ano, neutral. Pero mukhang, ano to eh, sad. Unintelligible, mumbling from ahead of the bed steers me out of my sleep. With my eyes still closed, I can focus and make out someone, presumably a nurse, bidding farewell to a doctor. As I opened my eyes, I noticed the door closing in my peripheral vision. The doctor standing reading some notes of a clipboard held in his hands, carefully looking over the pages. After consulting his obviously very important documents, he looks up and notices my gaze. It's not that I notice something slightly odd about his expression and general disposition, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Ah, I see. You're finally awake. I see you're awake, Mr. Nakai. His quick glance to my bed and to verify my name showed that his documents obviously did have it written on them. I must admit this is a bit unfortunate, but your parents visited just earlier while you were asleep. I could notify them you're awake now if you'd like. Thanks. That would be good. I give a somewhat dazed reply, most likely the one he'd expect, before really thinking about what I'm saying. Not a problem. If you have any question you'd like to ask, I'll be happy to answer them. That is unless you'd prefer to rest. The anesthetic's still going to be affecting you a bit, I'm afraid. The anesthetic, of course, that be why I felt so strange the first time I woke up. I slowly shake my head, not wanting to dislodge any pipes or cause myself any more discomfort than necessary. The doctor politely puts down his clipboard in response. I guess my main question is what exactly happened. To put it simply, you've unfortunately had another heart attack. While not as severe as your first, you were very lucky it occurred too close to a hospital. After being stabilized, we were taken to the operating room. What followed was keyhole surgery in order to insert a temporary pacemaker. My God. All in all, the incident happened 2 days ago. Oh my God, 2 days ako. Umalis na, nakaalis na sila. With emergency treatment being carried out very soon afterwards. Since then, we've kept you under close observation while you were asleep. Will I be alright? Are there any lasting problems? Compared to the procedure carried out of your first heart attack, this was relatively minor. While you will have to undergo surgery once more in a few days time to remove the pacemaker, assuming there are no complications, there should be no lasting implications. He continues talking the subject, shifting to a repetition of facts about arrhythmia and my medication that I already know for the most part. I start to nod and feign interest while my mind drifts. I begin to think about how perfectly hung the inoffensive painting hanging on the wall. Behind his shoulder is in-house neat and sterile. The surroundings are even including the doctor himself. If my mumbling bores you, you are quite welcome to say so, Mr. Oh my God, Mr. Nakai. Lord knows I lost track of myself sometimes. He gives a short chuckle of his self-deprecation as he remains awkwardly having been rather badly caught out. The doctor chuckle sounds different from that of the nurse at Yamako though. Come to think of it, as I ponder why, I realize why the man in front of me feels just that little bit off. His smile is neat and sterile. He delivers joke perfectly with a customary inoffensive chuckle. It is like rather than talking to the man whose name is neatly printed on the name tag pinned to this cloth, I'm merely interacting with an actor reading of a pre-rehearsed script, every action having been choreographed beforehand. I suppose he has to be this way though, being a doctor. Has to keep his neat and sterile smile when chatting to the girl with cancer slowly spreading through her body. When reassuring the woman who'll surely die from childbirth. Oh my God, how dark. And with every other terminally critically ill patient. That little bit of distance, that little bit of aloofness. It makes me wonder if I've been too harsh, especially considering it's a disposition far from being adopted only by people in his profession. After all, the one I loved kept the same distance from others herself. Looking up to the doctor again, I realized I've been in thought with my head bowed for some time. I understand you must still be tired. You've been through a lot. As I mentioned before, the anesthetic would still be affecting you. If you don't mind, I'll let you get some rest and tell your parents you've woken up for you. I think that would be good. Thank you. He gives a curt nod, picking up his clipboard and making his way to the large white door in the corner of the room, closing it behind him with a thud. In the end, I'm alone again. Lily's gone. Akara's gone. Hanako would be traveling and even my parents have already left the hospital. Four pale pitch walls, one white ceiling, and a single open window to look out towards the world outside. Uh, it's hard to think of the future when the past is crowded around you. Claustrophobic in its neat, sterile, starchy, bleach-smelling grip. Lost for what to do or focus on, I content myself with sleeping the time away as if this were all just another dream like Yamako had been. White. A sterile, clean white for a sterile, clean room. My eyes open and I simply stare at the ceiling for some time. It's about as interesting as a television would be, mounted in its metal rack ranging off the ceiling ahead of the bed. Indeed, the television saw its entire that use during the time my parents were here, left on quietly as they waited for me to wake. It was about as banal as it had been the first time I'd end up in the hospital. Earlier today, an attending nurse had offered to turn off the EKG speakers. I refused simply because the sound is so entirely normal to me now. It's almost comforting in a way. The metronome-like regularity gives at least some feeling that time is moving, even in a place such as this. After some time of listening to its beeping while I fully awakened, though, I realized there's another sound in the room. Concentrating all my efforts on listening, a task made rather easy by the lack of distraction, a tiny, tiny melody can be heard. Light and quiet, the music sounds almost fatter as it's dwarfed by the EKG's pulses. Tilting my head just slightly to the side in an effort to see the source of the melody without dislodging any of the sensors and pipes out, I noticed a little wooden box sitting on the nightstand next to the bed. Yung music box ng kay Lily Sama. Oh my God! Is Lily Sama or here or iniwan lang ni Lily Sama? Tapos binigay sa... Oh my God! Ano ba? Hindi. Kasi kung ano, kung edi nagstay pa sila, na-miss nila yung ano, si Lily Sama, si Lily Sama. My mouth opens just slightly while I silently watch the tiny yellow metal drum. Yung binigay ko kay Lily, binigay ni Iso kay Lily Sama. The tiny yellow metal drum slowly rotate inside the little bumps on its surface, gradually moving in out of sight. This music box. It's the one I gave. The creaking of the door breaks me out of my reverie. My head and heart remaining still as my eyes turn to see who comes through. Long tan skirt, pitch of the shoulder sweater, pale, almost porcelain skin, blue clouded eyes and long yellow hair. Oh my god, Lily sama! All I can do is stare at Lily slowly walk into the room. Her fingers lightly running over the wall for orientation and my mind comes to a shuddering halt. Li- Lily? She stopped mid-stride, her entire body tensing. Hisaw, was that you? Her voice is quiet and pensive. Baka dream lang naman to. Oh my god, ano ba? Dream and reality is confusing me, you know. Echoing her expression. I thought you were... Lily takes one tentative step forward, then another as if she was holding herself back. Her control over her composure is for naught, though, and she finally rushes over to where I lay as the last of her resistance falls. Oh my god. Oh, baka nga ito yung good ending. Oh my god. True ending. Oh my god. I'm slightly taken aback when she grabs hold of me, hunching over as tears begin. Hindi pala good ending. The best ending. Let's go. I'm slightly taken aback when she grabs hold of me, hunching over as tears begin to fall from her cheeks. Since only minutes ago I thought she was on the other side of the world, after a moment of hesitation, I rest my right hand on her soft shoulder. Hisaw! Hisaw! Lily's body trembles as her tears blot the pale green sheets, her emotions flooding through her carefully maintained exterior. With her face now closer and made easier to see for her pale skin being lit by the sunlight from the window, I notice her cheeks being redder than they should be. It's okay, Lily. I'm okay. You don't need to. She rights herself quickly, her crying forcefully stifled with both sadness and stubbornness remaining in her moist-tanned eyes. Her prideful nature always having been something to contend with takes me off guard. Stop telling me not to worry about you, Hisaw. Just this once. Let me cry. Ooh. Yung putang ina mo, Hisaw. I'm caught speechless. She waits for a response, but her composure breaks again, and after a handful of seconds, I swallow hard to try and settle my own emotion while she whips onto my bed. A strange mixture of relief and depression welling up. Lily's here. She's really here. If I couldn't feel her skin under my hand, I'd hardly believe my own eyes. My efforts weren't for nothing. My body's attempt to take away everything that was important to me once again has been foiled. But now, I don't feel as happy about it as I thought I would. Seeing her here, crying like this over me, this one thing I would want to avoid since coming to love her, ever since leaving the hospital. I'm sorry, Lily. It's my fault I'm here. I shouldn't have tried to push myself so far. I give a self-deprecating snort. After months of keeping myself together so nobody worried me, I went and did something like this. I guess I'm pretty dumb. With a couple of sniffs and a long breath, Lily managed to pull herself together and calm down a little. Despite her red cheeks, moist eyes, and line of her tears still visible, she delicately wears the weak smile she seemed to so often give. You didn't blame, you needn't blame yourself. I heard later that it happened as you were running down the road after me, right? Still, she wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, returning more of her old self as the rush of emotions wears off. Why did you run after me, Hisaw? Ooh. I moved to respond, but noticed her face tightening. Even after I'd said goodbye and I'd left Yamako Academy, she takes a moment to steady herself, her emotions almost bubbling up once again. I just want to say that I'm sorry. Sorry for the times where I wasn't there when you needed me. Until now, I thought you just being there would be enough. I only needed you by my side to make any day feel better. Oh my god. I want to help you, Lily, to be there when you need someone. But you always were there, Hisaw. Why did you want to go to Scotland, Lily? Why? I told you before, because Akira was going and because of my family's so much their home. Why didn't you say that you wanted to go? I I'm not stubborn often, but this one time I think I need to be. I want you to stay here, Lily. Oh, sheesh! Let's go! I want you to stay where everyone you know lives and where all your dreams and ambitions were made. If you choose to say I'll never leave your side, I won't let you lose another person. When I had my heart attack, I was snatched away from everyone and everywhere I knew. You showed me a new life, and after I came to Yamako, I'd lost my past, but you showed me a future. It's true that I haven't always been there for you. I'm unreliable. Sometimes I lied and I thought I'd come to understand you when I hadn't even understood myself. Damn! Oh, let's go. Be that as it may, I want to give you a future as well. I want to be there for you, to share both your burdens and your happiness just like I promised back in Hokkaido. Wait lang. Baka kasi meron mamaya tong ano. Kabuti naman, kala ko. Just like I promised back in Hokkaido. I want you to trust me. I know I had problems coming to put my trust in you after losing so many people I'd known after my heart attack. But that's how I know that being unable to trust others can feel awful. That's why I can't watch you just throw everything away like this. I never want you to go through what I did. I would do anything to stop that. You can be quite steadfast when you want to be, can't you? As I said, it isn't often. My weak smile dropped, though as the IV in my arm digs in a little. It's a harsh reminder of my tether to my condition. Lily's face tense as I let out a small gust of pain, immediately making me wish I'd stifled it better. All I can do is sigh in defeat. I tried to not let anyone worry over me for the entire time since I left the hospital. But I can't even stop the one person I love most from crying over me. Even if I might finally be able to put my feeling into words, I feel pretty useless with a body like this. Oh my god, lumalakas yung ulan sa labas. Every time I tried to reach towards something, it was just snatched away, and even now, things only turned out for the better due to luck. I guess that's something else I should apologize for. All I can ever do is make you worry. Even now, that's a very little chance I'll live anywhere near a full life. The feeling of Lily's warm, soft hand moving over my left cheek makes me lift my head up, her smile, gentle and warm as she touches me. I think that is something very natural for you to say. You're always so sincere and self-conscious. You're also reserved and mild mannered and patient to a fault with Hanako, yet curious about everything and everyone. When I said I missed you while I was with my family, I wasn't lying or exaggerating. The thought of you was never far from my mind, and helped me through that time. That's why I was so confused what to do when my family summoned me. Even after I thought I had made my decision, you tried your hardest to challenge me about it. I didn't confess to you out of pity or believing you were somehow different from what you are. I confessed because I never want to lose you and want you to always be a part of my life, no matter what might change. Oof. Sana naman magstay. Are you gonna stay? Long distance relationship? I can't. You're a very beautiful person, Hisaw. Your heart changes none of that. So please don't apologize for yourself anymore. Is it wrong to be selfish ba? Is it wrong to be selfish? Anong mali sa pagiging selfish? For a long time, silence reigns in the room. I'm not really sure what this newly born feeling inside of me is, but it pales into insignificance as I worldly gaze at Lily's smiling face. Warm and gentle as it has always been. It's only as her thumb crosses my cheek, wiping away a single drop of moisture, that I realize that is all I have ever wanted. For what feels like the first time, I give an earnest wide smile. As Lily feels it against her palm, she turns the gesture. More time passes before either of us says a word, neither of us needing speech to communicate our feelings to each other. I know I can promise you that I'll always be around, or that we'll be together forever. With some difficulty, I slowly lift my hand, placing it on her pale shoulder. But I think I can at least take you to the next year's Tenabeta Festival to make up for making you miss this year's. Lily's expression is one of surprise, though I can say I blame her. You remember that? I've got a pretty good memory sometimes. She raises her head a little and takes her hand from my cheek, giving a small amused giggle. I smile absent-mindedly and how earnest it is, almost girlish in its lightness. Still smiling warmly, she collects herself and stands upright with a hand resting on my chest. It feels like I'm seeing her for the first time. The sun from the window glowing behind her just as it did when I first walked into that room where she was drinking tea. Very well then, shall we make it a promise between the both of us to go to the next year's Tanabata together? Even if she can see me doing so, I nodded approvingly. I promise. I promise. Yo! Ano ba, stay ba siya or ano? Oh my god, what's happening in this country? Ano to, bakit may skip? Is this to end? Oh my god. Yun na yun. Oh my God. Is it, am I, is it good? Is it good ending? Is it neutral ending? Is it sad ending? Anong ending to? It felt like, what can I say? It felt like ah, I'm, I'm hollow. Feels like it's not something I can be with. It's something that I deserve to be called a ending. It is an ending, but not a happy ending or some sort. It feels like empty promises. Kasi hindi, promise lang, hindi natin makakita. Oh my God. Sana naman meron. Baka pagkatapos na nitong credits, merong yung, epilogue. Epilogue ba? Prologue? Ewan kong tawag. Sorry. Oh, meron. Okay, nasan tayo? Akira, Lily, and I silently, oh my God. Lily and I silently sit on the grassy embankment high above the local town. The breeze gently blowing through the cloudless sky. We may be just a few minutes walk from town, on a hill just outside its limit, but the view is entirely unexpected. Lily sits beside me, her eyes closed as the gentle breeze flows through her hair. This is a nice area. Yeah, I never knew a place like this was anywhere near Yamako. And I had to be the one to find it, of course. Akira's grin is genuine, but her tone is slightly different from her usual carefree nature. It's good that you're out of the hospital though, Hisaw. Nobody's more glad than I am. I can stand hospitals. So you two going back to the school tomorrow? Yup. Akira chuckles in amusement before looking back out to the town below. Wait lang. Baka ano to, yung parang past? Ewan ko. Ha? Wait lang, hospital. Tama. Ano to, yung pagkatapos ng sa hospital. Pero bakit kung pang pity we couldn't go up north for the summer holidays or get to Tanabata. I wouldn't worry. There's always next time. You'll be graduating before the next summer vacation, won't ya? Yeah, there'll still be college after that, mind. Going to the same one? Likely, we both have enough scores to meet the entry requirements. You sound so sure. Don't worry, you're better than I in most subjects. I guess we'll work out in due time. That's the way. Just enjoy yourselves in Yamako while you're there. Lily gives a sad sigh at the distinction made between the Akira and the two of us. They really need to go back to Scotland. Oh, Lily is gonna stay here. Oh my God. Yeah, the fox are already out for my blood as it is. You weren't meant to stay this long. She gives it her trademark wide grin. Setting my boyfriend up with a passport took some time. You're taking him with you? Just for a while at first. He's a surprisingly worldly guy. So I think he'll do just fine. Akira's given a amused snort. If our father had his way, I'd have God a long while ago. I just couldn't pass up in an excuse to stay with my favorite little sister a little while longer though. She leans right and gives Lily a tight, playful hug, cheering her up considerably. It's nice to be with you one last time though. For what it's worth, I'm in the same boat. Eh, thanks you too. I'll try and come back sometime, don't worry. It's a shame that the business keeps you so busy. The place won't run itself, I'm afraid. And I think it's going to be just the same over there. Considering that, I'd better get going. Have fun over there, Akira. Haha, will do. With a slight grunt, she lifts herself with her hands and stands up, dusting herself off as she does. So, well, better be off. The plane won't wait for me after all. She has a certain unusual wistfulness in the tone of her voice, her eyes firmly planted on her sister. I'll be okay, Akira. Yeah, I know. Come now, it isn't that bad. You'll be able to see us again soon. Oh! It is strange to have Lily reassuring a doubting Akira for once. She really has changed. Goodbye, Akira. Bye. For a second, the dark clad dapat see you soon. I don't really like goodbyes. Looks down at the both of us, smiling widely. Perhaps more widely than I've ever seen her do before.
She lets out a long, slightly wavering breath to steady herself before leaving, but eventually slips her hand in her pocket and turns on her heel. And with that, she walks away, one hand held in the air as she goes. See ya later, you two. A jazz tune with no beat, melody or direction to the very end. After a few moments of sitting silently, Lily and I pick ourselves and dust of ourselves off. Turning towards her with a broad smile, I hold out my hand. Shall we be off then? She takes my hand in hers with a gentle nod and a smile as beautiful and warm as ever. Indeed, we shall, he saw. As we set off towards the school, that wonderful smile engraves itself onto my memory, that wonderful smile that we both share. That wonderful smile. Our past may be scattered and at times overshadowed by sadness, but they're also an irrevocable part of our lives and personalities. Yeah, it's important. Even if I could change a single thing, I couldn't because my past was that led me here. That's why even with all that's happened to us before and all that may well befall us, together we'll keep walking forwards, towards the future, our future. Ine!
Oh my God. Ano ba yun? True ending? Ano ba? Ano bang true ending? Real ending? Neutral ending? Mukhang, mukha namang good ending para sa akin. Good ending, good ending. Bawal ko buksan yung extras. Pwede kong buksan yung iba, pero bawal ko buksan yung gallery. Cinema, pwede ba? Pwede naman yung cinema. Gallery ang bawal. May mga, kasi nga, I played the uncensored version of Screen. Wow! Siyempre, na-save yun. Oh my God. Ewan ko ba kung maano, pero it's nice to know that, you know, yung expected na hahabulin yung isang, hahabulin niya yung ano, yung is mga good shit yun eh, yung hinahabol. Kaso nga lang, good, 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 good shit. Sa mga pinaka gusto kong cliche out of all, yung hahabulin para makuha. Oh my God. Tapos ang ganda nung ano, yung nahimatay tapos biglang paggising, nandun na siya. Oh my God, so good. There's no hint na nakita man si ano na ano tayo ni Lily sama parang ganon. Good, good. I really think you know, try this for yourself and you know, para kung gusto nyo ibang ano, ibang characters yung route na gusto nyo. Syempre, wag ay ano iba naman. Pwede ko naman ano yung ibang characters din kaso nga lang I don't feel like being ano unloyal to my Lily Sama. Katulad lang kayo dun sa DDLC. One route ano lang tayo, one route of sa isang visual novel. Hindi ako yung lahat ng route, you know. Kasi I'm pretty loyal to whom I like because I really really like it. I really really like what I like, you know. Kaya yun na yung end ng mahiwagang end ng Lily Root ng aking playthrough sa Katawa Shoujo dun sa kay Lily Samas na route. Ewan ko baka maybe, I don't know. Pero syempre ibang laro naman para maiba naman. Masyado tayo matagal na dito. So marami pa akong araw na na-skip. Dapat konti lang pala to. Umabot pa ng 2 linggo, gadmay. Sorry. At yun na. Good. Good. For me, it's good. And ups and downs, yung parang may sadness and may ano, yung pinupull ka, tapos ipupush away ka ulit, tapos pinupull in ka ulit. Gets nyo ba yung sinasabi ko? Sana naman gets nyo. Basta, kung naintindihan ko kung mabuti, nagstay naman si Lily Sama para sa atin, di ba? At sana naman talaga ay good ending yon or neutral ending kahit pa paano. At good, great, so good. I really, play this for yourself. At yun na yun. Ito na yung end ng Katawa Shoujo. At yun na yun. Salamat sa pagkikinig. Salamat sa panonood. At okay, off na tayo. Johnny, bye-bye! Pero inyo kung gusto nyo ha. Pati kung gusto nyo din yung adult content. Wehe!